One of the biggest hurdles that humanity has to deal with since the beginning of time is the occurrence of natural disasters. For the most part, we have made significant progress in detecting and tracking natural disasters like storms and even volcanic eruptions before they happen. But there's one natural disaster that we can't seem to outsmart: earthquakes. The fact that humans can't predict when and where earthquakes will happen and how strong they will be makes it one of the most dangerous natural disasters. But what exactly will we face if the planet gets hit by an earthquake so strong beyond our imagination? So keep watching until the end of the video and we'll talk about what if we have an earthquake of 12.0. The majority of the seismic activities that happen on Earth are mostly seen around a specific area called the Pacific Ring of Fire. This infamous earthquake hotspot sees so much seismic activity because it serves as the meeting point of several tectonic plates, constantly shifting and grinding against each other in the Pacific. This results in countries like Japan and Indonesia, which lie directly above the Ring of Fire, experiencing thousands of yearly earthquakes. Japan is constantly headlining the news because of the absurd number of earthquakes they experience throughout the year, and how the Japanese have adapted their infrastructures and policies to their country's geographic disadvantage. Just over a decade ago, Japan was hit by the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami that devastated the country, killing almost 20,000 people. At the time, Japan already had one of the world's most advanced earthquake early warning systems and had successfully mastered how to create buildings that could withstand strong earthquakes. So, technically speaking, Japan wasn't unprepared, yet the earthquake still managed to take away so many lives. They had the perfect infrastructure indeed, because a lot of the commercial buildings that were affected remained unscathed and were still standing tall after all of the chaos was over. But what they weren't able to anticipate was just how strong the earthquake was going to be, and that it was going to result in a tsunami. The earthquake also resulted in a nuclear meltdown that exposed many of the residents of Fukushima to dangerous levels of radiation, which inadvertently caused more damage to the community. This Japan earthquake isn't even the strongest or deadliest in modern times because the infamous 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake holds that title with over 230,000 casualties and a 9.1 magnitude earthquake. But the reason why Japan is at the forefront of earthquake discussions right now is that scientists predict that Japan is due to experience another major earthquake, or the big one, soon, and it is expected that it will be a lot stronger this time around. Specifically, the government's seismologists say there is a 70% chance that an 8 or 9 magnitude earthquake will hit the country in the next 30 years. Professor Hirata from Tokyo University explains, "We did many assumptions to estimate this number. One is that previous activity is very similar to future seismic activity. We do not know if this is valid or not, but we simply assume. Because of this, the people of Japan are already preparing action plans for when the inevitable, the big one earthquake happens." One Japanese resident, who resides in Nanki Trough, where they predict the mega earthquake will hit, said, "That tsunami could come within 14 minutes. So, I look at hazard maps and remember escape routes. I have a backpack with clothes, shoes, and other daily necessities for when I need to go to the shelter." But what would happen if this mega earthquake that Japan is anticipating becomes stronger than they expected? So strong that the people won't even be able to use their emergency plans? Japan isn't the only country supposedly waiting for its own the big one earthquake. The US is also expecting the San Andreas Fault to release the big one, which will affect major cities in California and possibly affect the rest of the Pacific Northwest as well. The veteran seismologist John Vidal explains what the big one would feel like when it happens. He said, "It's basically moving the ground several yards over an area of 50 square miles, so the power of a magnitude 7.8 earthquake is probably close to the power used in the whole state for a year. Basically something that we as a civilization have trouble creating, short of like a nuclear explosion." Going by that description, it's safe to assume that a magnitude 12 earthquake, regardless of where it happens, it will be hard to predict the true extent of the damage that it may cause. Still, it will surely leave countless people dead and billions of dollars in damage. Experts break down the biggest hurdles we might face when a mega earthquake happens. First of all, a lot of our buildings and houses will probably not be able to withstand the earthquake. Japan's newer commercial buildings are built with shock absorbers and sliding seismic isolators underground so that the building will move with the earthquake instead of trying to fight it. And this lessens the possibility of the building just crumbling down due to impact. California also has several seismic ordinances that homeowners must comply with to protect themselves and their properties from earthquakes. But in a hypothetical magnitude 12 earthquake, these properties might still end up crashing down, regardless of how well built they are against earthquakes. Researcher Jon Stewart adds, "The building code, with its minimum requirements, does not ensure that the building will be serviceable after an earthquake. It's intended to not kill anybody. There's a sense that if it's modern, code-designed, it's earthquake-proof, and everything should be great. But that's not the reality. Our efforts in mitigating the effects of a mega-earthquake through strengthening our buildings and properties might be useless in the face of an actual earthquake." Another problem that humanity has to face in this situation is the lack of access to food and safe drinking water because our water system would most likely be affected by the release of the earthquake. Therefore, it won't be able to transport water to everyone who needs it properly. Jon Stewart comments, "So we would be without the lifelines that bring in imported water to the region. They cross through tunnels, cross through aqueducts near the surface. All of these would be ruptured, and so we would be losing 60% of our water supply. Many of these distribution lines for water are near sewer lines, which would also be broken. So now you have a situation where contaminants are potentially getting into the water supply. Forget about not having food. It's much more dangerous not to have water to drink because a person could die of thirst within 3 days. And in comparison, the average person can survive weeks without eating food. Aside from this, there are even wilder theories that these areas above the Pacific Ring of Fire, like Japan and California, might sink and cease to exist once a mega-earthquake happens. Although scientists say that the big one of the San Andreas Fault is a 7 to 8 magnitude earthquake, it most likely won't cause California to sink underwater magically. A 12 magnitude earthquake will be a different story. In the end, we can't really say for sure if these mega-earthquakes will happen anytime soon, but we know there are things we can do to at least be prepared once it finally happens. We can't stop this natural disaster, but stocking up on food, water, and anything you might need in the face of an emergency won't hurt anyone. Do you live near the Pacific Ring of Fire? What would be your game plan if an earthquake were to happen in your area in the future? Do you think humanity can survive a magnitude 12 earthquake? Let me know your thoughts and join the conversation in the comments section down below.